Hello, and welcome to this week's CML Statehouse Report. I'm Megan Duller, Legislative Advocacy Manager. As always, we've got a lot to get to, so I'll go ahead and get us started. The first bill I want to talk about is CML initiated legislation, which is House Bill 1117. This bill puts into state statute that within our land use authority, our being local government's land use authority, we can promote affordable housing in new developments. This clears the air around the Telluride decision, and it says that as long as a municipality, a local government provides options to the developer to comply, that it is not a violation of the 1981 rent control statute. That bill was passed on House second reading last Friday, March 19th, and we're going to keep working that through the process. There was not a ton of debate in the House. We'll certainly see if that's still the case, though, in the Senate, which, of course, is a much closer majority. The next bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 176. This bill is it's called the Power Act, and it really makes substantial changes to the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. CML has a number of concerns with the bill and will be opposing it when it's in committee on March 25th. I won't go through all of our concerns right now, but our big ones are that the bill does not provide for an individual to exhaust the administrative process through the Colorado Civil Rights Division before going to court. We've got some concerns with that, as certainly lawsuits can be very costly. Additionally, it expands protections on the anti-discrimination statute to independent contractors, which is of some concern for all local government associations, including CML. And then finally, the bill greatly expands the definition of hostile work environment to include if somebody feels that their well-being has been violated. And so, again, a number of concerns with that, and we'll be testifying in opposition on that bill. Also on March 25th is going to be Senate Bill 182, which has to do with school discipline. It makes a number of changes around how school resource officers interact with students in schools. And additionally, essentially says that municipal ordinance violations are not enforceable within schools. CML is still going through all the implications of the legislation, but we have some concerns with the blanket immunity in it, of course. We're working with our partners in the law enforcement realm, as well as school districts, to identify the real impact of the legislation, and we'll most likely be looking at an impose unless amended position on that one. Finally, I want to talk about a bill, House Bill 1222, that was recently introduced very late last week. What this bill does is it removes local land use authority around certain childcare centers, specifically those that are in single-family home. It requires that they be treated as residential property and not commercial, which then takes out the ability for local governments to also apply our fire codes, our building codes, and any other land use or regulations that we have on those centers. It essentially removes that. We've got a number of concerns with that piece of legislation, and we'll be meeting with the bill sponsors in the next week or so to provide our concerns, specifically that local governments should be able to regulate these entities as they are, as they exist in municipalities. And I know that the counties also have some concerns as well. So that concludes that concludes my report this week. I'll go ahead and kick it off to the next lobbyist. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. This is Heather Stauffer. Today, I'm going to be talking about 3 bills. The first bill is House Bill 1025, Non-Substantive Emails and Open Meetings Law. This is CML-initiated legislation, which clarifies provisions of the Open Meetings Law around elected officials' exchange of non-substantive emails. CML did testify in support of this bill in the Senate State Affairs Committee, and it passed out of that committee on a 4-to-1 vote. It will now make its way over to the Senate floor for second reading. The second bill I want to talk about is House Bill 1111, Consent Collection Personal Information. This bill would have required governmental entities, which include statutory and home rule municipalities, who collect personal information to give notice to citizens every 90 days that they are collecting that information. So as you can imagine, this would impact everything from email addresses to liquor and marijuana licenses to utility bill payments, just a vast array of impacts there. CML provided testimony opposing this bill in the House State Affairs Committee. The sponsor of that bill asked for it to be laid over in order to allow him time to draft a strike below amendment, which will turn it into a study on the amount of personal information collected by public entities. So more to come on that bill. Finally, House Bill 1208, the Natural Disaster Mitigation Enterprise. This bill creates the Natural Disaster Mitigation Enterprise, which collects a fee on insurance companies that offer certain insurance policies. The revenue from that enterprise goes directly to local governments for fire mitigation projects. So CML is supporting this bill. We had some great testimony from the mayor of Grand Lake in committee, and that bill passed out of the House Energy and Environment Committee on a vote of 8-4. So that will now head over to the Finance Committee, where it will have a bit more of a challenge. So we will be working to support that bill. And that's it for me. Have a great week.
Hi, everybody. Bo Clarine here with an update on 3 bills. The first bill I want to provide an update on is House Bill 1132, which is sponsored by Rep. Amabile. This bill changes some criteria used to allocate the local gaming impact funds. After discussing this bill and potential impact with our members, CML is working with the sponsor and proponents of the bill to ensure formulaic recommendations of a recent impartial impact study are considered in the grant process. I'll be sure to update you all next week on these efforts. The next bill I'll provide an update on is Senate Bill 86, which allows beer licensees to use third-party delivery services to deliver these beverages to customers 21 years and older. CML has been working with the proponents of this bill for a few weeks now and has gotten confirmation on an amendment that requires these services to get a local alcohol-specific permit if the municipality chooses to create this sort of permit. Due to this amendment, CML will be testifying in support of the amended bill today in the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee. Lastly, I will discuss Senate Bill 148, which creates the Office of Financial Empowerment in the Attorney General's Office. CML is supportive of this bill and will be testifying in support of the bill today in the Senate Finance Committee. Again, we are supportive of this bill because it could increase administrative and financial support for local governments that wish to implement financial empowerment programs. That concludes my updates for this week. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan McKillop, one of the legislative and policy advocates of CML. Let's get to what I'm covering right now at the Statehouse. Last week, Senate Bill 2184 passed third reading in the Senate, and it will head over to the House, where it's being sponsored by Representative Matt Gray. The bill gives local governments authority over roughed-in roads, which are areas that have been prepared to become a road but don't actually qualify. These areas look like open space and have seen increased activity causing public safety concerns for some of our communities. We're looking forward to testifying in support of the bill in the House once it's scheduled. Next, I want to talk about Senate Bill 77. This bill, sponsored by Senator Gonzalez and Representatives Benavides and Kipp in the House, specifies that the verification of lawful presence is not required for a person applying for a license, a certificate, or registration to practice a regulated profession. So for example, if a person wants to apply for a license to be an early childhood educator, he or she would no longer have to submit their immigration status as a requirement for obtaining that license. The bill was heard in Senate Business and Labor Technology Committee on Wednesday, March 17th, and CML testified in support of an amendment that would include local government licensure to the bill. The amendment would remove similar lawful presence verification requirements at the local level. That bill will be heard up on second reading in the Senate this week. Finally, we have a big update for you on transportation funding. Last Thursday, legislative leadership, along with the sponsors of the much anticipated transportation funding bill, released details of the proposed legislation. The bill raises nearly $4 billion in revenue over 10 years by implementing 9 new fees, which will begin in July of 2022. These fees include a 2-cent increase to the current gas tax, a new fee for electric vehicle registration, a 25-cent fee for online retail deliveries, and a 30-cent fee on rides with carpool services like Uber and Lyft. There are some additional fees in the bill that are outlined in the draft proposal as well. A majority of the revenue will be distributed through the Highway Users Tax Fund distribution formula, and municipalities will have access to specialized funds created from the remainder of the new funding. The plan does call for a reduction in faster vehicle registration fees for 2 years, but the sponsors of the legislation have indicated that local governments will not see a reduction in revenue as a result of those reductions. The funding package has the potential to create a significant new funding source for municipal transportation needs throughout the state, and we are working closely with the sponsors and our partners in local government as this legislation develops. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our report this week. As always, please feel free to reach out to any of the lobbyists and ask any questions, offer feedback, provide concerns, or just if you're interested in a piece of legislation, we're happy to talk to you about it. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.